members of the Executive Council, leaders and representatives of business and industry, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct pleasure to deliver this message of support to the second Eastern Cape Investment Conference. I'm really sorry that I cannot be with you in person, as I'm currently in Bali, in Indonesia, representing our country and the African continent at the G20. I thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to address this very important conference. That confront our people as a province that is richly endowed with oceans and waterways, plains and hills that have fertile land and a capable workforce. The Eastern Cape is perfectly placed to attract investment across many old and new sectors of our economy. This province is the land of enormous opportunities. Some of these opportunities are that the Eastern Cape is the heartland of our country's automotive industry, which is a major contributor to our exports and GDP. In April this year, I was in Gqeberha for the launch of the Isuzu D-Max Bakkie. This locally produced vehicle forms part of a 1.2 billion rand investment in next generation vehicle production by Isuzu in our country. This investment makes a firm statement about the prospects for the development of this industry in the province. The Eastern Cape has two special economic zones at Gqeberha and East London, which are attracting strategic investments into the province. This is supported by a concerted infrastructure drive in the Eastern Cape. Last year, I was in the province to see the impressive progress that has been made with the N2 Wild Coast Road and the Msikaba Bridge. Upon completion, these projects will bring immense benefits to the provincial economy and indeed will impact positively to the lives of citizens of this province. The province has been hard at work to improve efficiency at our ports. For example, in July this year, the Port Elizabeth car terminal recorded the highest volume of vehicles ever moved through the terminal. In May this year, there was a 67% increase in container volumes at the East London car terminal. These improvements are signs of a provincial government that is hard at work, with Transnet also to make the Eastern Cape an efficient and cost-effective place to do business. and to support manufacturers to get their goods to market. With Transnet having opened slots on its freight rail for third-party investors and operators, we expect that private sector investment in this strategic infrastructure will further improve efficiencies for business and industry in the province. There is also ongoing collaboration between the province and Transnet to increase the capacity of the Johannesburg-Port Elizabeth railway line. The Eastern Cape has shown potential as a destination for renewable energy as well. Earlier this year, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy announced a 3 billion rand renewable energy investment in the Eastern Cape. We trust that delegates to this investment conference will take time to explore some of the abundant opportunities in agriculture and agro-processing, including in the expanding field of cannabis cultivation and in the oceans economy. The Eastern Cape is one of the country's most mega biodiverse regions. Places like the Wild Coast attract tourists from across the country, from across our continent and the world. It is hoped this conference will discuss ways to attract greater investment in tourism services and infrastructure. Given all this province's endowments, our expectations of this investment conference are very high. Your presence as business people and investors is a demonstration of confidence in the Eastern Cape economy and its great potential. Let us come together to turn pledges into reality and plans into projects that are actionable. I call on you to bring your investment to the Eastern Cape, the home of legends, and the place of great and enormous business opportunities. I wish this, the second Eastern Cape Investment Conference, every success. And I wish, as business people, you can move from contact to contract, and in the end, plant your investments in this great province. I thank you.
Can you hear me? Thank you. The President has indeed spoken. It is time to turn those contacts into contracts. I am now continuing on the journey of this program, and we are now going to be celebrating investment projects that have been announced since the beginning of the 6th administration. I think we are all aware that if there is anything that has characterized the past couple of years, we could say that it has really been a VUCA period. There's definitely been so many uncertainties, and through those uncertainties, it could have been very easy for investments that would have been pledged 3 years ago, 4 years ago, to have fizzled down and become unfeasible. But the reality is that one of the things we're going to be celebrating as this province of the Eastern Cape is not just contracts that have been signed. It is not just pledges that have been made, but it is impact that has been made at the most needed of times by companies that made pledges to this government and companies that have lived up to their promise. I do think that even before we announce them, they do deserve a round of applause. I say so because these are companies that are still standing despite a challenging, very challenging global economic climate. Some of them have been faced with funding challenges. Some of them have been faced with supply chain challenges in the wake of COVID. Some of them have been faced with an increased cost of doing business, but all of them have remained resilient. And I do want to believe that one of the key enablers to that resilience is the location that they have chosen as their investment location. One of the recipes to their resilience is the Eastern Cape itself. I want to believe that it is partly because of the support that the Eastern Cape government has enabled them, where they've gone to the trenches, they've understood the challenges faced by these businesses, and they've enabled them to thrive despite. I'm going to be calling upon those companies now, but I want us to record what they're going to be saying. I requested that everyone be awake and everyone be intentional, because in their stories is going to be many lessons, not only for government, not only for investors, but lessons for other players in the various supply chains of the industries that we want to thrive in this province. So take out your pens and take out your notebooks, for these are stories that have never been told. But these just may be the stories that we need to transition the Eastern Cape investment sector into new heights of success. The first one of these companies is people that have seen an opportunity in crisis. They are in the manufacturing sector, and their company name is Hive Energy. And I'm going to be asking Mr. Colin Lobser to come up and tell us the story of Hive Energy. Over to you, Mr. Lobser.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. First of all, the President, Honourable Muyani, I got it right eventually, dignitaries and delegates, thank you for inviting us here, but more importantly, thank you to the Eastern Cape and particularly Coega Development Corporation and Transnet for the incredibly warm welcome we had. It wasn't so warm in the beginning, but it's warmed up and now it's red hot, so thank you for that. We were worried a bit about the technology not working, so we just want to put this up here so you understand exactly what we're doing here. So we have a little video here which CNN has kindly made for us. It was featured, some of you may have seen it, and after the video we will go into some details on the project, but thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here today. There's no sound. Okay, so everyone knows Coega. Coega is this incredible, massive complex of over 7,000 hectares of land waiting for industrial development. And our objective is to bring that to Coega and also to enable it. And our key focus today is bringing that message to you on how we're going to do it. And in this little banner here, and you'll see it in our slide presentation, we will show you exactly what that means. We see ourselves as the forefront of the Africa green energy revolution. But before I tell you about that, because that's an exciting thing, let me just tell you about Hive Energy. So Hive Energy is a company in 20 countries. We have hydrogen projects in South Africa, Chile, and Spain. South Africa was the leader. We were the first to look at hydrogen in our industry back in 2018 when nobody knew what it was. And I remember coming to Coega and saying, we're going to do this green hydrogen project. And they looked at me as if I was mad. Today, everybody's talking about green hydrogen. And we're delighted we took the initiative so long in advance. We've worked at our relationships and we're thrilled with the result. But the most important thing, of course, there's better wind in the desert and there's better solar in the desert. But this is not about just renewable energy driven products. This is also about what we call and what the government calls and what Eskom is now embracing is the just energy transition. That is really where we're at as a business. We want to see jobs created. We want to see people's lives changed. And often these big metropolitan areas don't have the best resources, but we are blessed with Coega, which has probably the best harbor in Africa, particularly for what we are doing. It has space, it has resource, it's an incredible location. So my eyes are not as good, I'm a bit older now. So I'm just going to quickly talk you through what is the just energy transition. And you'll see that, and you'll understand today, the Eastern Cape was a little bit left out of this just energy transition. And we thought, well, this is not really the right thing. So we've made it our business to bring that just energy transition to the Eastern Cape by enabling certain things, by bringing more power in. So the first phase of our project is going to bring 3.2 gigawatts of power to our plant and enable another 10 gigawatts of power to come into PE. That means anyone who's in industry can now come and use the port. Currently, they can't. There's not enough power. There's not enough green power. So this is the green revolution we're talking about. So we'll bring 10 gigawatts of power into PE and create around 20,000 jobs over 4 phases. So the total investment of our first phase is 100 billion rand. Just think of that 100 billion rand just in the first phase. And we, somebody's arrived. Mozambique and Zambia import ammonia. They have huge commercial farms. Sorry about that. So just think of the first phase, 100 billion rand of investment, committed to date in development from Hive Energy or Hive Hydrogen side is already 2 billion rand, just on feasibility studies, land securitization and engagements with government. So that's already committed fully. And then we have tremendous partners in the project. You all know the Linde Group in Germany, market capitalization of 160 billion euros. They're very serious about coming into this country and making the Coega project the lighthouse project for the Linde Group globally. So we have a huge accolade. This will be the largest green ammonia plant in the world, just in the first phase of development. We've got the best engineering company behind it, and of course, Hive Energy, the best renewable energy company behind it. Okay. But as I said, it's predominantly around the just energy transition. We are working strongly with Black economic empowerment. Our chairman is Thulani Gibashi, outgoing chairman of Standard Bank. He's retiring now, just turned 65. Former CEO of Eskom in the days when Eskom was bright and cheery. He left in 2007, but been a driving force for us on the Black economic side, helping us tremendously with this project. And of course, what we're doing will enable industry. We're hoping to bring electrolyzer plants to Coega. The world will have a massive, almost insatiable demand for electrolyzers. And we heard about the batteries earlier that Justin Pengeli told us about, and it's the same phenomenon. That will bring huge jobs to the country. We're talking about tax revenues. Government needs to build more roads. We heard from Sanrail, they need the money from tax revenues. Someone's got to pay tax, and our project will generate massive tax revenues. Of course, port development. Transnet has got this tremendous port at Coega. It already has a liquid bulk terminal. We will enable a second one to be built. So it will now be able to become a liquid bulk hub for South Africa. And obviously, the most exciting thing is as an ammonia production hub, we'll be able to use ammonia for fuels for ships. We talked about the maritime industry earlier. It's not just about hydrogen. Most ships will be running on ammonia in the next decade. Of course, behind this is climate change. And climate change is the biggest concern and the drive for renewables. So everything is solar or wind, a little bit of waste to energy, a bit of hydropower. It's all green power. And this means they're cleaning up the atmosphere, but more than that, it's driving this transition to create jobs and new industry. And of course, all the industries here, if any of the farmers are here today, the dairy farmers, the citrus farmers, to export any of their product, they have to have green power. And the agrivoltaic side is a tremendous initiative, but there's some packaging plants for high-level industry, mega industry that will need green power, and that will come in as a result of this too. And of course, water. One of our massive byproducts is water. We all know how Coega and the Nelson Mandela Bay region suffered with a lack of water. I think we will produce 90 million liters of fresh water a day as surplus, and that will help to alleviate the water crisis too. And of course, job creation. That is everything for us. We want to see the 10, 20,000 jobs created and sustainably created. And the key for sustainable jobs is for us to develop phases 2, 3, and 4 of the project, which will bring a total of $20 billion of investment, or 4 trillion rand, to the country. I think that's life-changing for everybody. And we think, I think in the near future, you will see some incredibly big announcements around our project. There have been some already, and we will see this move to all 4 phases, hopefully. But phase 1 is definitely coming. That's the biggest one in the world as it stands, and we're delighted to be part of it. So thank you, everyone, very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lobsa. Your round of applause doesn't satisfy me. When someone talks about billions and then these billions are in US dollars, I do think that as a province, it's something to write home about. And I think just the one thing I want to say about this investment is that he talks about a revolution, a green revolution. And he talks about the Eastern Cape being part of it. And maybe my question to you as an investor or a player in the value chain is, what is going to be your role in the revolution? Next on our list of investors is a player that's in the agricultural sector, one of the sectors where, as a province, we've always been told about the potential, but we believe that it is time that we convert the potential into major returns, not only for our economy, but for the communities that reside within our province. And I would therefore like to call Mr. Ilyas Ali from El Mawashi to come and tell us about their investment.
Economic recovery in the Eastern Cape. It has the potential to contribute 1 billion to GDP annually. The live exports industry creates jobs, eradicates poverty, and sustains rural livelihoods. In the Middle East, it supports food security of countries unable to rear and farm livestock in arid conditions.
Our call as the department, we're supposed to be here to oversee the fairness of the whole process, especially when looking into animal welfare. According to the OIE, it is our requirement that whenever such operations are taking place, there must be certain minimum standards that are adhered to. We were quite satisfied by the entire operation.
Large-scale commercial live exports on the continent are driven by Al Mawashi, South Africa. The company is the largest international buyer of live animals from the South African farmers. Al Mawashi, South Africa, is a subsidiary of Kuwait-listed company KLTT. KLTT is a global leader in responsible and humane live exports. It has been operating for more than 40 years. The South African subsidiary is making a significant impact on the livelihoods of commercial farmers and rural communities in South Africa.
The Middle East is an arid area, is an arid region that cannot sustain livestock. So sending livestock over to the Middle East actually sustains their food security. Secondly, and most importantly, is the religious connotation behind it. Religious slaughter is very important due to Islamic faith. That's what they do during the Eid al-Adha festival. Thirdly is consumer preference. Consumer preference is very important because we need to supply the demand that these consumers require in the Middle East. Middle East are very discerning consumers, and the South African meat that we send across, be it chilled or alive export, is actually taken on very proudly in the Middle East.
At the core of Al Mawashi, South Africa's company essence is a commitment to animal welfare and health. Middle Eastern markets have strict religious laws governing the humane and ethical treatment of animals. Animal welfare is a paramount across Al Mawashi, South Africa's value chain, including feedlot operations, terrestrial transport, and onboard livestock vessels. Live exports also respond to government strategic, national, and provincial master plans for agricultural and rural development. Berlin Castledale feedlot becomes the nerve center before animals are exported to the Middle East. Here, animals are kept for biosecurity isolation periods. Al Mawashi, South Africa works closely with the NSPCA and South African authorities to ensure animals are screened. The goal is to assess that animals are fit for travel before they are loaded for a journey across the sea. Al Masila is a state-of-the-art livestock carrier. It has been passed and certified by both South African and Australian government authorities. Accredited veterinary experts from South Africa's Red Meat Industry Forum are also satisfied with the vessel's compliance with the OIE standards.
During our inspection, many things, are going very well. This shipment is going very well. There are officials that are on the farm as well. They are monitoring also the welfare of the animals and make sure that everything is loaded nicely. We are here at the harbour, we are monitoring the harbour part of it. We are also inspecting the vessel to make sure that the animals inside the vessel, they are happy, there is no signs of distress, pain, hunger, there's water provided and feed.
Al Mawashi, South Africa understands that South Africa was a country once divided. To assist non-commercial farmers to transition to commercial ones, Al Mawashi, South Africa awards offtake agreements. Live exports are critical to the creation of inclusive prosperity for South African farmers, while contributing to the food security of the Middle East. It is an industry that must be protected, promoted, and appreciated.
Good evening. Yeah. Sorry, guys. A good day to the program director, the Honorable Premier of the Eastern Cape, the MECs, the delegates, and the other distinguished guests. My name is Mr. Ilyas Ali. I'm the Managing Director of Al Mawashi, South Africa. For y'all who don't know who I am, I'm the sheep ship guy. That's what they call me. And I think the video that we've just played right now actually highlights everything that Al Mawashi has done in the Eastern Cape since we came in to the Eastern Cape in 2019. And, it's just been a roller coaster rider since we've been here because of a lot of the issues that we've had with certain organizations. But I think we've actually looked at who we are. We are a company that's that's been listed in the Kuwaiti Stock Exchange. We've been tasked with food security in the Middle East. We've been around for about 40 years. Al Mawashi has subsidiaries globally to ensure that supply chains contributing to food security, and we take this job very seriously. Al Mawashi is one of the largest buyers globally, and the South African subsidiary is the largest buyer of South African sheep. The project came to South Africa following an outbound investor relation outreach by the ECDC in 2018. And we've actually done our first shipment in 2019. Al-Mawashi provides market access to global markets with growing demand for food security. Looking at why we've actually come to the Eastern Cape is a lot of people have been to the Middle East, and you'll know that it's a very arid region, very bad climatic conditions, and they cannot actually farm down there. They cannot also cultivate crops and partake in basic food production. And I believe this is where the Eastern Cape can take full advantage to fill the gap and answer this demand. And Al-Mawashi provides that market access. The Eastern Cape boasts the largest number of livestock wealth in South Africa, with an approximate 4.6 million sheep, which aligns with the strategy of Al-Mawashi, where we look at exporting live and chilled meats for food security. We have done 4 successful shipments from 2019 to 2021 at the East London Port, and we have actually exported 220,000 live sheep and 1,600 live cattle. Coming to the investor experience, I think this is the part that I enjoyed the most when I was actually doing this presentation, because I've worked very closely with the ECDC and Dr. Da, especially Mr. Pakamisa George and Dr. Vosi Arozani from Dr. Da, who have actually endeavored to assist Al-Mawashi with a myriad of challenges since 2019. Further collaboration with the Dr. Da to engage with the developing farmers, where Al-Mawashi went to these communities and actually provided guidance for the procurement of livestock for export markets. We've also worked closely with the ECRDA in qualifying and developing farmers to further grow their flocks and become competitive in the livestock environment by qualifying developing farmers with offtake agreements. This process is currently being streamlined for continuous improvement. The economic impact of our investment, basically, it's actually benefited the microeconomy and also the primary producers of sheep. In addition, various industries like fuel, animal transport, vaccines, and medication have also actually benefited from our investment. Al-Mawashi also creates an access to a market, as previously mentioned, which also assists the South African red meat industry to build a world-class reputation for its red meat in the Middle East. Our meat in the Middle East currently is actually second to none, and our rib rack is actually one of the best in the UAE. We've been voted the number 1. And Australian meat is dry, so don't buy Australian meat. I think not only is the exportation of animals from South Africa to the Middle East destinations bringing economic benefit, but it also responds to the South African government's National Development Plan and also the Eastern Cape's PDP. This has been identified as being both in the NDP and the ECPDP as a vehicle to stimulate economic growth and create jobs and eradicate poverty in the Eastern Cape. And I believe agriculture is the way to go at the moment. So far, the total investment from 2019 to 2022 has been 864 million rand. Just a point on that, this could have been actually doubled to 1.6 billion. We've had some issues with the draft regulations, which I'll bring up in my further slide, which has actually hindered Al-Mawashi South Africa from actually doing any livestock shipments from June 2021 right up until, well, it'll be till the end of this year, which if you have to tally that up as being 150 million rand per shipment, we're looking at 5 shipments, which equates to 750 million rand that has been lost because of these draft regulations not being put forth. Sectors that have actually benefited from our investment so far, as mentioned, transport, animal feed, construction, and shipping. And I believe that these enterprises will actually grow once the draft regulations have been passed. I think the Eastern Cape has a wealth of agriculture opportunities and for the investors to explore. Although Al Mawashi is it's a livestock company, we do also a lot of trading. We've looked at cannabis, we've looked at other opportunities with regards to dairy cows, goats, and I think this will actually grow as the company actually goes into the next strategy level. With an organization like the Invest SA One-Stop Shop, investors can benefit from streamlined service offerings ranging from investment facilitation to business regulatory applications. The Eastern Cape has adequate logistics infrastructure for investors and provides easy access to regional and international markets. And I think the Industrial Development Zone provides a myriad of business trading solutions for any investor that actually comes into the Eastern Cape. I think the most important part of my presentation comes up now, where what Al Mawashi expect from the Eastern Cape provincial government. I think we need the Eastern Cape provincial government to further assist with fast-tracking the draft regulations for live exports. Al Mawashi has lost 52 million rand in 2020 because our vessel was actually interdicted at the port for 3 months. And I think going forward, as I mentioned, Al Mawashi does not intend taking any further risk in carrying out any further live exports until the drafted regulations have been approved. Again, the economic downfall on this is approximately 600 million rand for this year. The Port of East London needs to provide a turnkey solution with proper infrastructure to facilitate a sustainable live exports supply chain. The feeding sheds need to be further developed. Tools need to be provided to investors like myself to streamline our process. Thirdly, and this is quite contentious, it's the constant court case battles by the NSPCA and the animal rights groups. The provincial government needs to create investor confidence to guard against organizations like the NSPCA who are having a negative impact on economic growth and development brought forward by FDI. I think one of the most important points here is the Eastern Cape government should actually look at setting up a world-class certified halal abattoir in the Eastern Cape. The global halal red meat market is sitting at 802 billion USD. And in 2030, it's looking at something like $1.6 trillion. That's just amazing. And I believe that the Eastern Cape can tap into this environment. Currently, we lack the service to actually service multiple countries with the need for halal red meat. The Eastern Cape requires a world-class certified halal export abattoir that can export fresh chilled meat into the European Union, Africa, and the Middle Eastern countries. Our current market research has shown that there's only one export halal abattoir in the Eastern Cape. And further research shows that most abattoirs in the Eastern Cape are turning to white meat processing to answer the domestic demand for cheaper meat options. This currently reduces the capacity for growth and the Eastern Cape's reach into the economically viable global markets. A world-class halal abattoir could open a completely new revenue stream with countries like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Indonesia. These markets are currently being serviced by Brazil, Australia, and India, with Australia contributing to more than 30% of this growth. It is important to keep in mind that South Africa is a net importer of red meat. However, we believe that the Eastern Cape has the potential to change South Africa's standing by working closely with trade and investment and the Department of Agriculture to increase the export of quality red meat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ali. I think when we started, I did say that this is not just an announcement. There are lessons that we need to learn, and there are mandates that we need to take. And I think that the latest presentation is indeed an indication of that. If you're a business and you're looking for opportunities, if you're investors and you're looking for opportunities, at the tail end, there was an opportunity in terms of a halal laboratory that he spoke about. Does it talk to your strategy as a business? Does it talk to government strategy in terms of growing the agro-processing sector? There's a great call for processing, and I think that's one of the things he spoke about. And I think for me, it talks about a broader vision for the agro-processing sector, so that we don't just focus on primary production, but we move from primary production to prime returns from our own agricultural produce. But thank you very much for that excellent presentation. Again, a reminder that we had a global investor that came and invested locally and is indeed taking our products globally again. A reminder that the investors that we talk about here are investors that are driven by impact and development. And a reminder that as the Eastern Cape, when it comes to agricultural produce, we are naturally the best location for investment. We are now moving on into the tech space. And I'm going to be calling then upon Mr. Sipom Tombeni from Google SA to talk about their investment into the Eastern Cape.
Okay. Good afternoon, Honorable Premier, delegates, and other distinguished guests. So I'm going to touch a bit here on Google's investments in the country, but also then specifically how those can be leveraged for the Eastern Cape. I think when a lot of people, when you talk about Google, they ask, I mean, what is that? It's more than just the search engine. Should I just bring this higher? Okay. It is more than just the search engine. Google is a multinational tech company. We offer internet-based services and products to a number of users across a number of jurisdictions, including ours. So as Google, we have a mission to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful for all. So this is part of the ethos of what drives how we structure our investments and how we then get into markets. To a lot of extent, I think we're not an infrastructure company. We are a tech company. We are a software company. So to a large extent, we would enter into partnerships. And I'm glad that when we spoke today, from the opening remarks, there was a lot of emphasis on partnerships, because that is one thing that I think I would like you to take out of this, this presentation that I'll give today, that we as Google are looking to partner more with the government of the Eastern Cape to make sure that these investments that we have made into the market are being used to optimize, optimally, to make sure that there's optimal impact. Now, in Google, we, as a research and information company, we've done some research into looking at what is driving economies these days and emerging economies. And we've coined a term that we call digital sprinters. Digital sprinters really talks about how these emerging economies like the Eastern Cape, like South Africa, can base their growth strategies around digital transformation. And this is done by the use of 4 pillars. First being human capital, investments in human capital, investments in physical capital, the use of technology, and competitiveness. And in this paper, which I'm happy to share with you, that we've done and published, we talk about how some of these pillars can then be used to make sure that investments are being brought up, that government and public sector are working together to bring out these the elements that are going to drive economic growth. Now, I mean, just one thing I think I wanted to highlight is that as a company, we've made a commitment in 2021 with our global CEO, Sundar Pichai, making a commitment to spend over $1 billion US dollars in Africa over the next 5 years. So now this informs a lot of the investments that we make into the country, and I'll just touch into a lot of them now. So when we talk about physical capital, which I'll start with there, This is where we've made some of our big bets to make sure that we are contributing to the infrastructure in the country and thus into the Eastern Cape economy. On physical infrastructure, I think two of the major announcements that we've made is the first one that is with regards to the Equiano subsea cable. What Equiano does is that it is bringing connectivity to South Africa through a cable that started in Portugal and is on the coast coming down from Togo, Nigeria, Namibia, and then into South Africa. With that cable investment that we've made of about 2.2 billion rands, we are looking to see a return of 180,000 new jobs just by that ability of that cable coming into country, and about a $7 billion contribution in GDP by the year of 2025. Now, if you just to think about it in numbers, if you were to convert that $7 billion USD today into rands, that's about 120 billion rands that we're talking about. This again would contribute to South African GDP by 2050 by doubling the GDP there, and also would also reduce carbon emissions that are found. Besides the Equiano subsea cable, we've recently, as last month, announced our intention to invest in a cloud region in South Africa. This would be Google's first cloud region on the continent. The region would start with investments in South Africa and potential to then go within to the region with other African countries. But it would be based here and would be anchored here as a start. Then again, what we've done research on as we are preparing ourselves and kind of making sure that the sustainability of this project can be taken through, is that we've seen that this can contribute to about 40,000 new jobs. And the jobs I'm talking about are the ones that we can account for directly to come to the company and to the resources around ensuring that these investments are seen. Obviously, I think a lot of research has shown that a lot of these jobs can go up to 4 times because they have a ripple effect into the economies in which they are placed. We then we see that would make a contribution of about $2.1 billion into the GDP, also by the year 2025. 2.1, I did the maths earlier, it's about 35 billion rands into the country's GDP. Now, the Equiano subsea cable itself, in terms of what its effect will have, to give you context as to what it does, it will contribute to reducing the retail internet prices by 21% by 2021. Again, this makes sure that a lot of businesses, people who have previously not been able to access internet will be able to do so now at a more affordable price. We also see that it will increase the internet penetration by 7.1% and also triple the speeds of internet in the country by 2025. Again, here, you can think about what the ripple effects and what the effects are for an economy like the Eastern Cape, where connectivity has not been great. We are hoping through this investment that we've made that connectivity will come through and at a larger rate and an increased rate to make sure that a lot more people are able to become digital citizens and participate in the digital economy that we see now. Our second pillar that I want to speak about is that of human capital. So besides our investments in the infrastructure of Equiano, for instance, to make sure that there's connectivity and broadband that goes through, we've also made a number of investments into the human capital. And here, factors such as digital skills, encouraging entrepreneurship and startership environment by supporting SMEs, and also making sure that we address gender gaps within economy is some of the things that we've invested directly in. So I've listed there, if you can see, some of the programs that we have in country, which again, we want to make sure that we are able to leverage a little bit more within the province. Is that we have, for instance, launched Google's career certificates. that allow for self-training, but also there are programs that can be brought into larger cohorts to start teaching people who are, well, youth and people who are interested in doing it, the new careers that will be necessary. So as I've said, for instance, previously with our investments in infrastructure, there are jobs that are coming. These jobs that are coming are looking for data analysts. We're looking for UX designers. Where are those skills for the people to be able to match the need? We've started this program where we have a digital skills garage, which is accessible to as many people as possible, for them to then start learning these skills, so that by the time those opportunities for jobs come, then we have a matching pool of talent. Again, this is something that we're looking to scale within the province, because we haven't seen much uptake of it within the province. Another one is that I would like to highlight is a program that we call the Hustle Academy. The Hustle Academy is aimed at SMEs. It's a 5-day boot camp which takes SMEs who have started their journey and need support in terms of scaling and growing themselves. And they're trying to find the way to get, for instance, to prepare a pitch for a DFI, to get more funding, to start growing. We take them through this boot camp. We go through principles of management, we go through mentoring, we go through financial wellness, etc., in order to equip them, in order to be able to have the necessary resources to then go out and grow their businesses. Last one I'd like to, or the second last one I'd like to highlight here is we've got the Look Me Up program, which is aimed specifically at female entrepreneurs to make sure that we are providing them support and platforms in order for them to be able to grow their businesses in order to be visible in the online space, so that their businesses are recognized and they get it to the relevant markets. The last thing here is just we've entered into a partnership with NEMISA in order to try to scale here. And I think this is one thing that I would also just like to highlight for the province, is that we have the resources, we have the tools, we have the products. This is what we specialize in making. We don't necessarily have the contacts with the communities. And I have found personally as an employer for the company that we struggle to then scale up and make sure that as many youth, as many entrepreneurs have access to these resources which are available. And this is, again, an area of partnership that we would like to explore further with the province. The third pillar I'd like to speak to then is around technology and the use of technology. I think one thing that we've been clear about as a company worldwide, but even locally, is that we are kind of an AI-first company. We believe that the adoption of technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, other tools that are available in terms of tech should be done a lot more from the private sector, but also specifically from a government side. We obviously offer our own tools, but what we try to do is make sure that there is a better understanding of how these tools operate and work. So we do a number of trainings, for instance, with government departments. We do training with private sector to make sure that they are able to make use optimally of these tools. When you start thinking about concepts around e-government, for instance, I know this, to some extent there are people who still struggle with what that looks like. These are things that we ideate with governments at a provincial level, national level, and even local level, to be able to make sure that you're able to use, for instance, our Google Cloud products. But one of the other things I'd like to highlight, for instance, we have Google for Education, which provides tools to be able to provide e-learning and e-learning tools to schools that would benefit from them. We are actually in talks right now with officials from the Department of Education here in the Eastern Cape to see how we can optimize the use of our tools to offer learnings to more rural schools, where the ratio of teacher to students is not as desirable as it should be, but to be able to leverage on technology as a tool for delivering education. And this is one thing that we're looking to pilot in the next year or two, and hopefully then start scaling up to make sure that technology is being used to heighten education and the delivery of education in the province. The last part really talks about competitiveness. which talks about the need for policies that are necessary. So whether you're talking about competition policies, you're talking about tax policies that allow for the growth and entering of businesses. So we support that there should be as many entrants within the tech space. We do our part in trying to make sure that a lot more competition is brought in within the tech space by programs that we have, for instance, for accelerators, accelerator program that we have in Africa, and also the Black Founders Fund, which is has been done for 2 years now, has been a $7 million investment that the company has made, has identified about 120 startup businesses across the continent, including in the country, who are tech-based or tech-enabled companies. They would, for instance, receive $100,000 cash investment. They'd get other support in terms of mentoring, etc., from the company. Again, here, what we're trying to do with our investments is to make sure that these companies that we invest in can grow and scale, increase the employment numbers of employees that they have, but also then become more sustainable businesses in the province. Yeah. So I guess I've stated it as opportunities in my last slide, that to a large extent what I've stated in my bullet points, there is areas of opportunity which I think a lot of them talk to partnerships and the need for greater partnership with the province, which is something that we're looking to do to make sure that, for instance, we are able to roll out the digital skills training to a lot more people, to a lot more youth. If you think about the stats that there is a 60% youth unemployment rate within the province, that, I mean, it's a sad statistic to look at, but it's also an opportunity because it means you have a pool of youth that have the opportunity now to be able to be taught the relevant skills, so that by the time the work of the future starts, which has already started, but that they're getting equipped to then be able to partake in that part of the economy. So with that, I think I will stop right there, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mtombeni. Another industry, another sector unlocked. And I think that's the industry of internationally tradable services. And I think one of the things I enjoy about this investment is that it's a catalyst for growth in the tech space for local industries as well. Because it's not only going to ensure easier access for local businesses in terms of ICT services, but it's actually going to ensure that there's growth in the demand of the services of the players in the tech space. But most importantly, I think it allows us to play in the knowledge economy and in the digital economy. And I know that that is one of the strategic objectives of the current administration. I also do think, however, that Premier, your list of action items is getting long. And part of that is ensuring an enabling and efficient regulatory framework for the sectors that we are wanting to anchor in this province. I know I said in the beginning that you are an advocate, and if there is anyone that I know will add their voice to some of the challenges these industries are facing, it is you. I want to introduce a different dimension now because I'm in the investment promotion space, and I know that there's been time that has been allocated to the speakers. And I've noted that some of the speakers are going over the time. You are investors. So when you go over time, there must be a pledge that you make in terms of new investment or additional investment. What is going to be the returns for us? I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but I would just like to plead that we've got a 2 o'clock end time frame between us and the next slot. And if we delay this one, then it's got a rippling effect on the next couple of sessions that we've got. And I know to all of us in the room, time is money. So unless it's a new investment announcement, please, if I can ask you to just please be observant of the time frame that you've been given by the ECDC in terms of the brief that was given to you. We're moving on now, and it's another investment in the renewable energy space. Can I just check, is there a representative from Nordex? There is no representative from Nordex, so if I can ask the tech team then to please proceed with playing the video from Nordex. Please check your sound. While you're fixing that, if I can just turn the tables a little bit. We're going to have videos after the other now. So if I can just ask the tech team to just check and double check that there will be no glitches with the Nordex video. There will be no glitches with the Survivor video. And I know that Hive Energy have asked for their video to be played as well. If I can please ask that we get it right the first time. Do we need more time? Can I call a speaker, or are you ready? Okay, can we then show the Hive Energy video, please? I hear that that's ready. Masi iyeka ilunga. There's an opportunity in this industry. Can I ask that we do this? And I'm making a call here because it is a frustration to be let down by technology. And I know the team as well is feeling that. If I can ask that for this session, we don't take any more gambles. Investment is not about taking gambles. It's about calculating your returns.
196 billion.
Okay. I'm going to ask that we get the speakers from Zwembezi, and we get the speaker from Transnet. And then we get the speaker from Senro. After those speakers, yes, Kaloku, they have not just announced new investors. They've announced new investment, but they had already invested. That's what all these other investors that have been announced are going to do in the next investment conference. They're going to invest and reinvest. That is the name of the game. So we're going to be asking Senro,
with potholes and severe rutting negatively affecting the riding quality and comfort for road users. To restore the road back to its old glory, the top layer was recycled and stabilized with cement. As an interim surface protection measure, the whole road was sealed with a 10mm armor seal and texture slurry. Asphalt patching was done to remove bumps. Sanral also added much needed work in terms of fences, subsoil drains, and side drains. The final double seal with road marking and road signs will be concluded in 2023. This is a 452 million rand Sanral special maintenance project, with 135.6 million rand set aside for subcontracting to targeted enterprises, bringing much needed economic growth in the region where the agriculture industry has been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. At Sanral, we're excited that this project also presents job and training opportunities that will upskill local people and SMMEs to start and grow their CIDB grades. We're also thrilled about our partnership with 6 technical and vocational education and training colleges. On top of this, university students will undergo practical training for a period of 18 months on this project. Soon, the R58 will be back to the SANRAL national standard. SANRAL, an agency of the Department of Transport.
Thank you very much. Sandro, that was a 5-minute video. I will then give 5 minutes to the chairperson of the board or a representative of SANRAL to come and give us their message. Can we give him a round of applause, please?
May I thank the program director for the opportunity. Siyabulela sisi. I must also apologize to all of you, please, because I'm outside there having fun, and I am told people are waiting for you inside here. So I asked the program director, what should I say? She says, I don't know, just talk. My name is Themba Mahambi. For my sins, I am currently chairperson of the board of SANRAL. Those who have been following matters pertaining to SANRAL will really pity me, because you know what is going on out there. I am here together with 2 members of the board of SANRAL, Mr. Pete Thamsanqa Matosa and Mr. Errol Makhubela. We are here to grace this occasion because of the very, very serious partnership we have with this particular province as a state-owned company entrusted with funding, developing, and maintaining national roads around the country. The Eastern Cape, as was indicated earlier on by our project manager, Marlies, who's going to come here and give you the details pertaining to our investment here. The Eastern Cape is a major province in our portfolio currently. The reason being that historically, this particular province has rather been ignored from a road investment perspective, given the fact that, as we all know, the economy of this country has been inordinately concentrated in Gauteng all along. And of course, with the transformation happening in the country, our government has really pushed state-owned companies to be more active in those provinces that have hitherto been ignored. Understanding, of course, that infrastructure development is a major catalyst for economic development, and indeed to manage, this unequal distribution of resources and opportunities in our country. As SANRAL, we see ourselves not only as a national road builder. In so saying, I am saying our mandate in law is to construct national roads. But I'm sure you will all agree with us that when you traverse any road, you do not have this sense that this is a municipal road oh, now I have moved into a provincial road, and oh, 500 meters down the road, I'm studying on a national road. That is not the sense that people have of our roads. As a result, our Minister of Transport, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, has lately pushed for synergies and integration between us and the other spheres of government as far as road construction is concerned. The Premier of this province has highlighted to us that these developments we are busy with in this province are developments that are linked to other secondary roads. And indeed, our working on our own roads simply undermines the rest of the road network. And so there is that integration that we are working on as SANRAL together with this province. And the projects that our project manager is going to be introducing here, and she's right here behind me, will show you that there is now that integrated approach. There are those synergies that we are exploiting fully between ourselves. And therefore, I just thought I would highlight that so that when you hear about roads that do not seem to be national roads, you should then understand that this is all part of an approach that is new in the country, where we see roads as a network and as integrated even among themselves. So I just thought I would make those remarks before she starts. Thank you very much.
Good day again, ladies and gentlemen. I know that we are pressed for time, so I might go a little bit fast, but the presentation will be made available to any of you if you want some of the detail to it. And then I think it's also important to say that although SANRAL operates as a company, state-owned company, it is a state-owned company. So all the money that we are investing is money invested by government in you, in the Eastern Cape province. Okay, so there you can see the contents of the presentation. I'm quickly going to talk about previous financial years, the jobs created, what we can expect in future years, and then a little bit about our flagship projects. So first of all, I spoke earlier this morning about infrastructure investment in the past 3 years. And as you can see, we of course have a non-toll and a toll component. The non-toll component is about 88%. The remainder is the toll component. And we break down our projects into different project types, which ranges from routine road maintenance up to new facilities and everything in between. So on the screen there, you can see in the past 3 years, the type of funds that we have spent on the national roads in the Eastern Cape. And there at the bottom, you can see it's just over 8 billion rand. The next slide is an indication of the jobs that was created with these monies that we have spent, and as I also alerted this morning, more than 10,500 jobs that have been created here in the Eastern Cape by SANRAL. The next slide talks a bit about the projects that we have completed. So I showed you the 8-point-something billion rand, and just to make sure that you know that it's attached to actual real-life projects, my regional manager requested that I just list some of our highlights, which you can see listed there on the board. So those are all projects that we completed in the past year, 3 years, together with the project type, as well as the approximate cost of those projects. And you can see all our projects is quite big. Smallest ones, which is the special maintenance, is in the order of 120 million, and it goes upwards from there. Projects in construction, so those are a list of projects in the Eastern Cape that's currently in construction. I will focus on our flagship project, which is the N2 Wild Coast project, but as you can see on the list there, we are operating across the Eastern Cape. Then investment over the next 5 years, you can see there, I've got it in the financial years, so this financial year, 2022, 2023 financial year, which ends next year, the 31st of March, we're going to spend just over 4 billion rand. The year thereafter, we have 8 billion rand on our books, and most of those, that money is already committed. You saw the previous slide with all the projects in construction, so the money is already committed. Chances of us spending it is very good, and you can see our forecasts for the following 3 years as well, and in total, if you add it up, it's approximately 16 billion rand that we are going to spend in the Eastern Cape over the next 5 years. And again, to show you the real-life projects attached to that money, or that funding, you can see there is some projects that's currently in our supply chain, some of them still out on tender, others are in the evaluation process, and then there's also a number of projects on those lists. There are 2 lists where we already went through the procurement process evaluation, and we are ready to make awards. Then to get to our flagship project, there you can see it stretches all the way from East London, right through Mthatha, Lusikisiki, up to Port Edward, and it's got a length of 410 kilometers with 9 major bridges. There's a little bit more information. As you can see, this project appears on 2 strategic programs, government programs. About 112 kilometers is greenfield. So when we say greenfields, it means there's no road at the moment. So we have to start from scratch. And the main works includes our 2 mega bridges, the Mzikaba bridge, and which is already under construction, and the Mthentu bridge. And then, of course, there's also 7 big road packages, which also have their own major bridges involved. For the sake of time, I'm going to push it a little bit. If you look at that slide, the regional economic development, it will lead to faster delivery times, lower transportation costs, and estimated 1.5 billion per year in time cost savings. It will be approximately 85 kilometers shorter than the current route, and depending on the type of vehicle that you are driving, you will save anything from 1.5 hours upwards. This is the bridge that's currently under construction, some nice pictures of it, and one really have to be on the site to understand and experience the magnitude of this project. I think any engineer that works on this project will really put it on their CV as one of the highlights. There is some of our targets for this project and what we have accomplished in terms of our targets. You can see there the contract value, 1.7 billion, and we are already standing at 1.1 that we spent. That is the October certificate of the contractor. Contractor is slightly behind schedule, approximately 17 months, but from a project management point of view, I'm not surprised because it is really a huge project, not only financially, but also in terms of technicality, etc. This slide also talks to our labor targets. It talks to our targeted enterprise targets. And as you can see on the percentages there, we are either well on track or we have already exceeded it. The next one is the Mzikaba Bridge. This is just some typical value add. I'm not going into the detail, but other than the bridge, you will see that there's a lot of other projects around it where we do access roads for the community, etc. So there's quite a lot of value add. This is a typical access road on a steep area where we make use of dew cells, which is filled in by concrete. It's labor intensive, and all of this work is done by local labor and local targeted enterprises. That is the Mtento Bridge, which was just awarded, and you can see the details there, just over 4 billion rand, and contract is going to be on site very soon. There's also some typical value add. So even though the main project was only recently awarded, we have already in the past 2 years did a lot of work around this project. Then the 7 packages, there you can see them in different colors, stretching from Tombo. Those of you that know the area, it's close to Port St. John's, all the way up to Port Edward. And again, I see she's standing closer and closer to me. I'm getting a bit scared, yeah? So I'm rushing. So there you can see the 7 packages, and most of them are in design, 5 in design. 2 of them are in the tender stage for construction. We hope they will be awarded towards the end of the year. But all of them, we are already busy with due technical investigations, etc. You can also see the values there, totaling up to 7 billion. Okay, last slide. Wow, that was a rush. I think it's very important to mention that in anticipation of this project, we did numerous, since 2010, we already started with numerous community development projects where we actually trained, it's training programs where we trained local SMMEs, local targeted enterprises in construction, and in anticipation of these big projects so that they can take up the opportunity. And more specific in the area where the mega bridges are, we've completed 5 community development projects. As you can see there, 51 grade 1s, CIDB grade 1s that was trained, and they are now all in the order between grade 2s and 5s. You can see the number of people employed on those contracts. We've got 2 more CD projects currently in construction and many more to come. It was quite a rush. As I said, presentation is available for the detail. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Not just building roads and networks, but also changing lives. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I put you under pressure. It is the name of the game today. I am then going to be asking the speaker, Mr. John Rice from Zambezi, to get ready to come and speak about their investment. And Mr. Zambezi, I'm going to ask that, Mr. Rice, I'm going to ask that you speak first, and then we'll play the video afterwards. Mr. John Rice.
I'll be very quick. Otherwise I'm in trouble. I know, I can see that. Good afternoon, Premier, delegates, and other distinguished guests. My name is John Rice. I'm from a company called Zambezi Farms. We farm oysters in Algoa Bay. I'd like to thank you all for your time today to present to you. It's been very exciting to listen to everything that's been said up until now, and we're certainly very excited to be here today. What I would like to do, if we're ready, is I'd like to play you a very brief video. It's only a minute long to give you a look and feel of our farm, of what we do in Algoa Bay, and then I'm going to take you through a couple of slides. Is the video ready? Great. Thank you. Can we load the presentation, please?
You can project the presentation, please. You can start.
Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the project purpose was to establish a partnership between ECDC, small-scale fisheries, and Zambezi Farm to create jobs, economic opportunities, and transformation of the marine aquaculture industry. Sorry. Can you not hear me? Okay, there we go. Thank you. Turn it. Okay, sorry, that will be that. There we go. Can everyone hear me? So how do we do this? To create this transformation and economic opportunities through a sustainable, profitable, and world-class oyster operation. Now, with every industry, there are obviously barriers for these small-scale fisheries in the agriculture industry. So some of them, one of them is primarily, and I think this is obviously a barrier in a lot of industries, but it's funding for CapEx, buying of oysters, and the day-to-day operating costs of a farm until it becomes sustainable is expensive. There's also the cost of technical expertise, and as well as there's a lack of technical expertise in this country when it comes to aquaculture. Obtaining permits and leases can be expensive and can also take time. Oyster health testing costs have also become very exorbitant. Just to let you know, our farm spends around R500,000 a year just on testing at the moment for pathogens, biotoxins, pesticides, and a whole host of other health issues. Also, one now needs a HACCP facility to access and sell into both the local and international market. And this is once again expensive to establish a HACCP facility, to build one, and then also to run it. You need expertise on a daily basis, like a HACCP manager, and all your staff need to be trained in food health. And also to procure reliable oyster seed can be tricky. So before I talk about the project strengths between the Zambezi Farm and the ECDC co-ops, I want to take a step back and just tell you how Zambezi Farm ended up in Algoa Bay. So our brand name is the Knysna Oyster Company, which tells you we started our life in Knysna. But in the early 2000s, we were looking for waters where we could produce a better quality market oyster. We conducted tests in Algoa Bay, and the results were great. So we migrated the whole farm across to Algoa Bay, where we're currently today. So we've been farming there for 20 years. We have a very thorough knowledge of the environment, and what we can tell you today is the waters there are excellent to create good market stock oysters. We have a certified HACCP packaging and processing facility there again, which once again the co-ops can leverage off. We have an existing strong brand under the Knysna Oyster Company, which has been around since 1949. Once again, we continually build and strengthen this brand in both the local and export markets. Gqeberha as a place to do business from an infrastructural point of view is excellent. It has a port obviously on our doorstep, so if we send a container of frozen oysters off into an international market, it's easy. And equally easy is to fly our live fresh oysters around the world, as there's an airport up the road as well. Available sea space is also a very important point. Earlier this year, DFFE declared an aquaculture zone in Algoa Bay. This allows for immediate farm expansion of the area. Just to give an example, we have been restricted by only being able to produce up to 100 tons of oysters a year. Now this restriction is totally removed. And once again, this plays into the whole partnership with the co-ops. We also have all rights and permit approvals in place, and we're fully compliant with the legal requirements around the South African Shellfish Monitoring Program and NRCS Food and Safety Program. And these two programs have been put in place to ensure that our oysters are healthy to sell to the market. We're also part of an animal health program. We also have a strong financial infrastructure to facilitate accurate reporting around the co-ops. I think it's very important to keep score and to ensure that the figures are healthy. So our current project, we're installing 6 sea-based long lines of 150 meters long. Each line will be seeded with all the lines will be seeded with 3.6 million oysters this next year. These oysters are collected monthly in batches from Namibia at the moment, but our intention is certainly to procure the seed going forward from the ECDC Hamburg Nursery project, which is currently underway, which is very exciting for us. The initial project has created 5 full-time sustainable jobs and with an additional 8 to 10 temporary seasonal jobs. We obviously expect this to accelerate very quickly. And there are also additional spillover jobs which are created within the Zambezi farm, obviously in the HACCP facility where we do all our packaging and processing, and continual training and upskilling of our staff and workers continues. So the direct benefits are that we expect this project to be cash flow positive in the first year, and thereafter to be sustainably cash flow positive and profitable, importantly. The economic benefit to these 20 cooperative members will flow fairly immediately. I also want to once again touch base on the growth opportunities in this ADZ that's been declared. So we are the only aquaculture operation in Algoa Bay. We currently farm on 27.5 hectares. Just our section of where the ADZ has been declared is 500 hectares. So we're farming less than, what's that, less than 3% of the area. And I'm not sure why more hasn't been made of this. Our products are accepted worldwide, they're demanded worldwide, and I sincerely believe that Algoa Bay can become an aquaculture hub. There's also obviously additional multiplier effect where businesses that supply products and services into the farm, such as transport, such as packaging, equipment, etc., will also grow through the whole process. So I've touched base, this is my last slide, I've touched base on the economic participation, the transformation, and also the continual upskilling of persons on the farm. However, I think the other growth opportunities that need to be mentioned is that there's an opportunity to introduce additional sustainable products, and these include mussels, abalone, sea urchins, scallops, just to mention a few. There are also growth opportunities within our oysters at the moment. Most of our product is live fresh oysters, but we're already now starting to see a significant demand for frozen whole and half-shell oysters. I even added tourism there because, interestingly enough, I probably get a call every week from a touring party wanting to come and see the farm, wanting to come taste the product, wanting to come and understand oyster farming. International markets are obviously a big opportunity as well. At the moment, we export to China, Hong Kong, Taiwan. We've engaged now recently both Singapore and Malaysia. In Africa, we export to Ghana, Zanzibar, Mauritius, and we've just recently exported our first samples to Egypt. So there's lots of opportunity. Just China alone, their consumption is other than what they produce, they consume over 4 billion oysters a year. So just to end off, I hope I've given you a little quick glimpse into oyster farming, but more importantly, into the opportunities that I believe Algoa Bay holds. And I really do believe that it can become an aquaculture hub. Thank you. Thank you.
Another round of applause because he did it within 10 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Rice. And I think he's talking about a sector that we haven't really tapped into, and the aquaculture sector. And I must say that other than just Port Elizabeth, there are also opportunities. I know in the Eastland and IDZ, one of the investors is going to be talking later on about opportunities and the compelling value proposition as well in terms of aquaculture. We are on to our last speaker before we show the survivor video. And I'm going to then be asking Ms. Yoli Sakani from Transnet to talk about the economic infrastructure investment that has been made by Transnet. A round of applause, please.
Premier, I must confess, as I'm walking to the podium, I'm busy reciting protocol. I will not get it right. I apologize up front. All protocol observed. Good afternoon, Premier. The Executive Mayor of Buffalo City Municipality. My name is Yoli Sakani. Ayanda, please listen carefully. I was born in Port Elizabeth. I grew up in Alice, and then I was everywhere. It's good to be back home. I'm responsible for our growth and diversification, which is looking for investments and opportunities for Transnet, both domestically as well as across the border. If I may, and then I'll stick to I don't want Ayanda anywhere near me, so I'll stick to my 10 minutes. Just as a way of background, I mean, we are a state-owned entity responsible for the logistics value chain. We are custodians of the rail, ports, and pipelines in the country. You could say we have a monopoly. 6 operating divisions. Our freight rail network, we're looking at 33,000 kilometers of rail. 80% of that, I mean, it accounts for 80% of the rail network in the continent. We have 8 commercial ports, 16 commercial port terminals. We're one of the biggest property owners in the country, as well as over 3,000 network or kilometers of our pipeline network. Now, if I may also continue to just give a little bit of context, which speaks to why we're doing the things we are doing in the manner in which we are doing them. We believe that we are key in accelerating social and economic development as well as transformation. However, you may have picked it up in the news, it's a known that we do have some challenges. Our balance sheet is rather constrained. We do have operational issues, cable theft, vandalism of the network. However, we have an opportunity in the National Rail Policy, which is introducing rail reform, which will then allow the private sector to access our network. So our focus is obviously, out of the many things that are on my slide, is repositioning our business, but also ensuring that we bring in the private sector to work and invest in our business. We have a newly approved strategy. Basically, it groups our business into 2. We have got bulk commodities. This is where we have global competitiveness, which is your mining products, chrome, coal, magnetite, manganese, iron ore. But there's also the second group, which is our industrial sector, where we know for a fact that we need to look into the industry itself in terms of strengthening our position there, which is obviously the auto sector as well as the agri sector, which are key in the Eastern Cape. So as such, our strategy is looking at these 2 and saying where we are good at, we continue to do that, but where we need to look into the sectors as well as the private sector, that's certainly what we'd like to do. Now, I spoke about the 2 groupings of our commodities, but if I may just unpack them just a little bit. Mining, we have iron ore. It is our intention to grow the iron ore sector, to about 67 million tons per annum. We're currently sitting at about 60 million tons in terms of exports. Manganese, and I'll talk to manganese a little bit more later, is we're looking at growing manganese to 22 million tons of exports per annum through the port of Ngqura as well as Saldanha. Coal, we are looking at 81 million tons per annum, and chrome and magnetite, we are looking at 37 million tons per annum, and as such, we are building our capacity to enable this growth. Then there's containers and auto. Again, we'd like to position the Port of Durban as the major port hub in the southern hemisphere rather, and then Ngqura as our transshipment hub. In terms of agri, would like to ensure that there's great migration from road to rail rather, and then the fuel and gas sector. Over and above delving into renewable energies, which is liquid natural gas, we want to ensure that in our storage facilities, we do enable new entrances into the system as opposed to the majors that are dominating the space. Now, bringing it back to the Eastern Cape, I've moved so far ahead of my technical team. If you could go to the next slide, please. Next. Thank you. This speaks to the projects that we are in the process of implementing in the Eastern Cape. I've spoken about Ngqura being positioned as a transshipment hub. Ngqura currently has a capacity of probably 1 million tons, if not over that, per annum, but we're currently doing just under a million tons, which is why we've sought out partners who will have access to volumes, obviously, that then can take us from 800,000 tons per annum, or TEUs per annum, to about 2 million in the short term. So that's well in advance. We've gone to the market, we're looking for a partner. What that also means is that the containers that are currently being handled in the port of PE will be migrated to the port of Ngqura, and then the port of Port Elizabeth becomes our auto hub. From an automotive perspective, I think the President also touched a little bit on that. The port of Durban is quite constrained, so we do have an OEM that has invested quite heavily in the reef, and they've asked that we make the port of Port Elizabeth available for their exports. Currently, that port, I think, is doing at about 150 fully built units. Once we've invested on the rail corridor, including the port, which I think we're targeting the next 5 years, that will see the capacity double to about 300 fully built units. That's also well in advance. We've done a pre-feasibility study. We're currently doing the business case. The price tag of this project, ladies and gentlemen, is something that we as Transnet can't handle on our own, so therein lies an opportunity for the private sector, whether it's equity partners or operators on the rail network. Manganese, I've spoken to our intention to grow our capacity to export manganese to 22 million tons. That is 16 million tons in the port of Ngqura, 6 million tons in the port of Saldanha. Where we are now, we've appointed an implementing agent, and they're well in advance in terms of going to the market and looking for partners that will then assist us in the development of this new manganese terminal in Ngqura. Of importance to note, though, is that we have just approved an emerging miner strategy that will foresee, or that will rather see 30% of our capacity going to emerging miners. From the agriculture point of view, we are looking at growing our the sector, particularly from the fruit exports point of view. That then means your branch lines as well as inland cold storages and warehouses are going to be in the pipeline. I do want to say, Premier, if you recall last year, we launched the Kookhouse Blani line. We then went to the market. There was zero responses from the market. No, I'm not blaming the market. We've actually just spoken to with Ms. Mama to say, maybe what we need to do is to try and establish what went wrong. Is it how we packaged it? Or is it because it wasn't well advertised? We don't know. But we will be coming back to the market again. By then, we would have engaged with the industry itself just so that we understand what the stumbling blocks were. But there's a lot of other branch lines that are targeted. Last but not least, this is my last slide. As I've indicated, we've got an OEM that has made a request to export out of the port of Port Elizabeth. But from the auto sector, Premier, it's important to note that the 3 ports that are identified for auto is the Port of Durban, the Port of East London, as well as the PE port. And therefore, we are then building the requisite infrastructure, both from a port and the rail point of view. Combined, we're looking at about 1,400 fully built units that would be exported out of the country. That ends my rushed presentation. Thank you so much. Ford. Bendingazazi noba nditsho na. Kuba ke ndise Mercedes-Benz land. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kani. You delivered the presentation excellently. Thank you very much. We are now moving on. We have got 2 additional investors. They are both video investors. I'm targeting that by 20 past will be done. So if we can please then play the Survivor video. Or you can play whichever one is ready first, but we are playing Survivor and we are playing Nordex. Those are the two.
Hi, I'm Darren Lindsay, CEO of Afrikaans Film and Television, formerly Afrikaans. We're the proud producers of Survivor South Africa, and we have been since season 6, all the way through to the current season, which has just finished in August 2022, Return of the Outcasts, season 9. This format has allowed us to travel the world, and since COVID, unfortunately, we had certain limitations that we couldn't travel, so we had to look locally. With that meant we could invest back into South Africa, which is something that is close to us. And we traveled the country looking for potential locations and options, and the Eastern Cape came out tops. The Eastern Cape is an amazing place. There's massive investment opportunities. The one thing that I'd highly recommend for any investors is get to know the community. Unfortunately, there's a lot of lack of understanding of investment and what that means. I don't know if that's based on the history up till now, but one thing we found was the lack of communication and the lack of education in what investment means to communities in the surrounds. The last thing we wanted to do as a production company or as a production was to bringing in foreign crew, being foreign crew internationally, as well as crew from outside the province. We wanted to make sure that the provincial labor, if I can put it that way, and suppliers benefited from our investment within the province and within the production. Yes, there's trials and tribulations to any investment. Any business person can tell you that. We had some ups and downs, but it's nothing that can't be resolved. I think it's just the Eastern Cape is somewhere that has the raw beauty, and with that raw beauty comes its own challenges. The one positive thing with investment and with us filming in our own backyard within South Africa is the fact that we're able to show off our landscape. As you'll see with lots of the ECDC commercials that we shot and we filmed and we edited for the ECDC around Survivor, you'll see the benefit of that natural beauty that the province has to offer. Television industry is something that is mainly in Johannesburg and Cape Town. However, I do feel there is growth within the Eastern Cape. And this comes down to, again, education and upskilling. And that's exactly what we plan to do, is to show the local communities and all the local provincial people what we can offer as an industry. The great thing about the world seeing our season 8 and season 9 of Survivor is the fact that we are now able to market these locations for future series for international clients. So it's a long process. It does take time. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And it's something that we all need to commit to and something that we all need to fulfill and follow up to. So yeah, all the best and good luck with the investment conference.
A round of applause for the Survivor team. Are we ready with Nordex?
So at the moment, Nordex is the market leader in terms of the number of megawatts installed from a wind generation capacity. Nordex has 1.1 gigawatts of installed capacity, of which 500 megawatts is deployed in the Eastern Cape. Therefore, it makes the Eastern Cape quite a natural hub for Nordex as an organization. We've decided to invest in a large service office as well as a central warehouse for parts coming in from Europe into the rest of South Africa, making use of the port. Eastern Cape has a lot of fantastic wind resource, so it makes it a natural place for IPPs to continue investing in developing wind farms, and therefore also a likely area where we as Nordex will continue investment, developing and building wind farms.
And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, sorry. Okay. There we go. Can we give them a round of applause? That's Nordex who are not here with us today. And I think just in closing, I'm reminded that at some point when we spoke about the Eastern Cape, there were people that would say if the automotive industry were to ever move out of the Eastern Cape, may the last person in the Eastern Cape please close the door. And I think that what we've just heard today, in terms of the industries that have invested in the Eastern Cape, it is clear that we are on a road to diversification of industry, and it is clear that the Eastern Cape is definitely open for investment. That is the last of that session. We are now going to be moving through to lunch. We have to be back from lunch at 3 o'clock, so I'm sure that we can try and make 45 minutes work instead of an hour for lunch. Lunch is down the stairs, and there will be an eating area. You will be shown into that by the events team. We hope to see you back when we again talk about investment and opportunities in